Comments be like, this is what no Nightreign do to me. So, lately I've been thinking about how to waste my time in a way that can be efficient for all of us and not just myself. The impending Nightreign may seem like a sandbox for modders, mostly because that's exactly what it is, but I believe this could be a valuable opportunity for From Software to add some of the most downright absurd elements into the game's ebb and flow in a way that attracts as many curious eyes as possible. The single-player experience of a Souls game has been exacted to such a recognizable science that pushing any further for innovation might actually catalyze a labor strike, and anything involving competition amongst players requires constant balancing and patchwork that FromSoft, time and time again, has reminded us they either can't do or aren't interested in. Co-op, on the other hand, is an entire uncharted intellectual landmass begging for conquest. They've started off by giving us groundbreaking new heroes such as Bird, 26-year-old Doomer Shut-In, and the only guy with an actual fucking name for some reason. What else could we possibly ask from Nightreign after they've already made us so happy? Well, I'm glad I forced you to ask, because truthfully, there's quite a lot. This video is proof that I never run out of ideas, and even when I do, I just start generating them for other people instead. Ideas like these. The Blasphemous Hand. You know the ringed finger weapon in the base game? You ever wonder what happened to the rest of the... Introducing the Blasphemous Hand. The hand itself isn't blasphemous. Rather, its user committed a wrongful act of sacrilege by standing outside of Leyndell and giving double middle fingers to the Erdtree, flapping them vigorously like he was trying to achieve flight. This egregious act of immorality was considered one of the 10 holy crimes of Leyndell. It's kind of like the 10 Commandments, only it's a list of shit that they just kill you for. Honestly, if you started watching this video thinking I was gonna come up with a bunch of innovative and balanced weapons, that's just your own fucking fault. Of course, relieving him of said malicious digits actually just had the adverse effect, channeling his faith further towards Volcano Manor and giving this weapon a 25% damage bonus when being used against those associated with the royal capital. This makes the Blasphemous Hand a particularly coveted weapon when fighting against Morgott during the Second Night, but the means of actually getting said weapon is mired in obscurity and community speculation, none of which has yet been confirmed by FromSoft themselves. Thankfully, data miners have determined the exact spot the player is required to stand, aligning themselves perfectly to face the center of the Erdtree in the distance, and confidently committing the same act of sacrilege as the hand's long-deceased owner, using a specific gesture that will be available once the full game releases. This is the known event flag for the weapon to then be airdropped to your player via Helldiver stratagem. Just make sure to communicate with your team on where you're dropping it, because the point of impact is considered a death zone. This is one of the game's only multi-phase unique skills. Raise the hand aloft to release a blasphemous miasma that incites violence against the authority of the two fingers, improving the damage of teammates in your immediate vicinity for 30 seconds. This seems like a no-brainer support utility until you realize that the casting animation itself just so happens to be 30 seconds long, as the hand is currently spread open, waiting for a response high-five from his other hand that will never be reciprocated. They're still working on the actual animation, but if you try to use this during the network test, it would just be like the Soul Stifler animation slowed down to like 10% speed. This renders you, the caster, completely invulnerable while also completely stationary, giving your team a potential disadvantage by being a man down for the next 30 seconds. The damage phase of the skill begins once the weapon realizes it only has 4 fingers and objectively cannot perform its own unique ability. In a disturbing spasm of fury and profanation, the will of the hand becomes separated entirely from its wielder, locking the player into a 20-second long chain of R1 spam that cannot be stopped or controlled, but it does grant you a 15% AR bonus and improves base weapon scaling by 5 points. A real Jesus take the wheel sort of ability that allows you to disengage entirely from the game, if only for a moment, perhaps so you can tab out briefly and switch up your background noise, or if your cheesesteak sandwich is getting cold. The Rug Pull. FromSoft has long skirted the possibility of gestures, messages, and other forms of player communication being potentially weaponized for nefarious in-game purposes. The first love gesture, for example, is constantly referenced as cut content from Dark Souls 3 that blew an actual kissy face reminiscent of something from an old 90s cartoon that dealt 5 magic damage upon colliding with an enemy. And it's nice to see Nightreign be the game where Ichizaki learns how to pull his fucking pants up and finally begin heading in this direction without any shame or hesitation, because Nightreign introduces the new Rug Pull character skill. Rug Pull uses a uniquely designed prattling pate to misdirect would-be adversaries into falling for various scam shenanigans, resulting in a string of impulsively bad financial decisions.
My rules.
This prattling pate introduces a brand new status ailment to the game called Epiphany. Enemies within range of the prattling pate suffer gradual buildup of Epiphany, symbolic of the slow and painful realization that they've willingly given thousands of their life savings to someone else that is provably, verifiably smarter than they are. The blowback of such irresponsibility, such fiscal ineptitude, is so profoundly heavy that it actually results in physical consequences, inflicting damage equal to 10% of max HP plus 90 flat damage. Once this occurs, the effect begins its second phase, a passive debuff that leaves the enemy dumbfounded at the reality of their current situation, which doesn't really serve any numerical purpose, at least not to my knowledge. I don't know, I can't really find anything in the params that reference it, but the inconvenience of having an intervention sprung on you by your own family because you gave 20,000 bucks to someone with the username thanks for the bandos would likely have some sort of negative effect on your final damage. Due to the esoteric nature of the ability, this one actually ended up going through a few different iterations before it finally reached a point where they could comfortably call it finished, evidenced by an earlier prototype of the ability that involves the player locking themselves in an iron cage, pretending to be a dog, and refusing to exit the cage until the value of Omen coin reaches $25 million. This was an actual scam, by the way. Somebody really did this. The Celebrant's Wheel. Strapped for cash? No, you're not. Introducing the one single weapon that takes the Celebrant's rune acquisition gimmick and actually puts it to fucking work. Just one problem. You think those runes were a donation from the Morgott Foundation of Trolling? No, you can't just print money and solve all your problems, bitch. That's not how the economy works. Those runes have to come from somebody's pockets. In comes the Celebrant Wheel's unique passive effect, Rune Pincher. A limitless, borderless, infinite range of pickpocketing that takes 5 runes from each of your fellow teammates that coincides with each strike of the spinning wheel. If you're on your way back to a grace after clearing out a field of demi-humans and you're suddenly strapped for runes and can't upgrade for some reason, someone on your team might have gotten their grimy hands on a Celebrant's Wheel without your knowledge. You see, the Celebrant Wheel is not built to be a main weapon. The scaling is shit, it's the only weapon in the game with a durability meter for some reason, and its very design builds the foundation in which proper team etiquette goes to shrivel up and die. The Celebrant's Wheel was constructed carefully and painstakingly to be the hidden dagger in your utility belt. For when you want to carry the team to give your ego a nice healthy stroking, but you're too lazy to actually play well and put in some goddamn effort. If I kept losing runes down the back of my poorly tailored pockets only to find out some snake has been gaslighting me into thinking I just suck balls at the game, I'd be more pissed off than a shit stain in a toilet bowl. With the Celebrant's Wheel, you don't need to play well. Just stuff some fucker's face with the saw blade once every couple minutes or so and let your teammates come up with their own theories and justifications for why they always seem to have barely not enough for their next level. I don't know, man, nothing to do with me. Maybe if you stopped playing like you're wearing boxing gloves, you could have taken that black knife with you into the final boss, instead of giving it to me, because I'm the only one that can use it. It's the year of the snake, and it's time to fucking act like one. Azazel's Bathwater. There's not enough liquor in Elden Ring, and that's a fundamental problem. The closest we ever even get to what could one day, God willing, pass as a quality draft is huffing the fumes from Celovus's brilliant concoction of non-consensual, writhing fuckheadedness. I don't know, creepy bitch. And that's still on our way to give it to someone else, be it Nefeli or Ofnir. I was deciding between this name and Mike's Hard Science, and the only reason the former won out is because I accidentally made a clever little joke here that I didn't even realize I made until I looked it up later. You see, in the Hebrew Bible, the name Azazel is associated with a demon that personifies uncleanliness, suggesting that whatever deplorable melange of liquids he regretfully bathes in every other month absolutely has to be right up there with weak old Cracker Barrel chicken grease as one of the world's most disgusting substances. Triple distill that motherfucker and you've got yourself the most potent broth of sauce in all of Altus. There's fucked up, there's shitting in someone else's pants fucked up, and then there's aggressively screaming Latin at your own reflection in the bathroom at 3 a.m. fucked up. I suppose I should stop getting ahead of myself and actually tell you what the item does. So, putting this as simply as I can, this is the item you use when you're under so much pressure that you are physically unable to give a shit about anything else that could possibly happen for the rest of this run. Downing this concoction gives you a 120-second passive effect called Tipsy. While under the effects of Tipsy, every attack that lands on an enemy has a 20% chance to deal a total of 1 damage. Your movement controls are also reversed, your attacks can damage teammates, and for the entire duration of the effect, effect, your character leaves behind a dominating trail of highly potent whiskey fumes bearing the distinct scent of unwashed wife beaters and self-sabotage. However, there is one massive opportunity for game-breaking comeuppance here. During boss encounters of any kind, including Morgott invasions, if you actually manage to adapt to the passive debuff and wrench control of your life back from Ichizaki's grimy talons, you can then encircle a boss with the passive fume trail. Completing a circuit with a boss inside immediately nulls the effect on your character, transferring it to the entrapped boss. Now, the boss goes after its allies, the boss experiences reversed movement, and now it's the game's turn to take a seat. Remember the Draconic Cavalry trio fight? Remember how much that shit pissed you off? Well, now you can sit back and enjoy the ultimate catharsis of watching that tree sentinel wildly assault a pigeon for 2 minutes because he could have sworn it was pointing a crossbow at him. Jester's plight. The Jester is a sick man, and unfortunately for you, you are in his crosshairs. Whenever something good happens to your team, it's the Jester's job to even out the experience. The idea behind the Jester's Plight Talisman is that it does everything it possibly can to try and get you to pick it up and equip it. It might disguise itself as a legendary tier talisman, it might promise a massive damage bonus for you and your team, or it could resort to more coercive means by symbiotically attaching itself to its host as they open a chest, and subjects its host to a permanent HP sap that doesn't clear until you finally accept its terms and equip it. Once you give in, because you will, the true form of Jester's Plight is revealed. Equipping it triggers a randomly selected debuff from one of these 5. Damage from status procs carry over to your team. The passive effects of all your allies' weapons, except the one currently equipped, are disabled. One ally suddenly, inexplicably, suffers a horrible internet connection that delays all their damage dealt by 3 full seconds. 30% chance for one ally to DC entirely. And finally, both your allies have their equipment slots blocked by an icon of Miyazaki's face superimposed onto the body of a tree sentinel. Only instead of a halberd, he's just wielding like a giant picket sign that says "nuh-uh." Now, if you've a keen affinity for observation, you'll notice every single one of these debuffs actually don't affect you at all. You're perfectly fine. The only debuff you have to worry about is the social pressure of knowing that the sole and proprietary cause of this run's imminent failure lies at the seat of your own vacuity. And the talisman doesn't plan on making this a secret either, because it has an additional passive effect that spawns an FXR of a pair of clown shoes on your actual character to remind you of your failed attempts at hiding your mistakes from your fellow teammates. It is made as clear as spring water that sticking with this run and trying to salvage it with this Joker on your side will so cruelly derive your experience of fun that you might actually start growing tired of the game itself. This idea had to be workshopped a little to make it viable. I thought of also turning on voice chat functionality for your teammates, but muting your own mic so you couldn't explain any context behind why you have the talisman. Oh, and if you leave preemptively with the talisman equipped, it just becomes your starting gear for the next run, and you just become somebody else's problem. The Stake Launcher. Underneath the fossilized formation of salt and displeasure around this game's community lies the bedrock of innovation. This is the philosophy behind every tier list I've ever made. I show you what things are shit, not because I like thinking of comedic ways to describe pixels, but because that's what motivates people to right the wrong. Unshitify the shit. And it's that course of action that gave us the Stake Launcher. Do you wish abilities like Shadow Bait and White Shadow Lure didn't drive you to headbutt your desk with the force of a pneumatic pump with its incompetence? Well, why the fuck would you wish for something you already have? That's kind of stupid. The archer character that I've lately been calling Robin Hood loads a triple stack of freshly made, expertly seasoned, medium-rare New York strips, impaling them with the steel tip of his arrow with the finesse of a 5-star chef. With this loaded, you can then fire the arrow in the desired direction, and every enemy in a fixed radius, regardless of aggro, will suddenly remember they've been up all shitting night playing this game, and it will dawn on them how hungry they are, leading them to give a hilarious amount of chase to the currently in-orbit shish kebab of quality protein. This allows the character to control aggro in a way that's never been possible before. You have the choice to fire the arrow straight across the island, and its infinite range will immediately displace the attention of all enemies, forcefully pulling an entire mob of creatures in its direction. Or you can fire it right at the ground 3 feet in front of you and create a focus window for your team to burst down a strong enemy. The Hostile Takeover. This skill involves the beautiful tapestry of profanity you wish you could offer to that obviously poorly timed restage by your Duchess. Or if you tire of watching your Wilder constantly whiffing his stake ult on useless mobs that could have been killed with an R1 tap or 2 anyways. Just kidding, the way he's using his ult is actually completely fine, but for some untold, poorly explicated reason, it's just not fucking good enough for you. Using the skill forms a cognitive tether with you, the targeted teammate, and said targeted teammate's controller. This immediately immediately brings your teammate to full energy, readying the ult, but disables the input used to activate it. No. That privilege belongs to you now, brave citizen. That is your ult. And you need only press L3 and R3, and your teammate will automatically activate it on your order. This provides you an opportunity to show the team of mentally deficient amoeboids how it's really done. But be careful, if you spring your teammate's ult to little or no results too many times in a row, the cognitive tether will begin to diminish, resulting in heavy damage to your character's frontal cortex. Once you've gone limp from lack of blood to your own goddamn brain, your teammate will then be able to use your body as a flail, improving physical damage by 20% for 45 seconds, plus 4% for each ultimate ability previously missed. If you are the intended recipient of this skill, then first of all, I wouldn't take it too personally. This doesn't always mean you're not using something correctly. In fact, it usually just means you've entered a lobby with a sociopath who gets their rocks off puppeteering someone else's powers around like a shittily prototyped Marvel villain. Who knows? Your hijacker might actually know shit about fuck and drag your ass over the finish line without you even having to do anything. In which case, enjoy the free ride, you ungrateful bitch. There were some other ideas Ichizaki was workshopping, but unfortunately didn't make it into the network test due to lack of efficiency or potential connectivity issues. Those ideas included the following. Shroom Zoom, a mushroom-based consumable item that temporarily 5x'd all your attack animation speeds, but slowed your movement speed down to 10%. The ability was discontinued because it unintentionally encouraged drug use IRL. Atomic Breath. Once every 30 to 60 seconds, experience such a violent spell of gastrointestinal distress that it causes your character to projectile vomit black sludge, dealing fire damage to any would-be assailants in range of the blast. Discontinued because fucking disgusting. I mean, why else would it have been? Eye of the Beholder. Become forced into the first-person perspective regardless of weapon for 2 minutes upon using your ult, in exchange for a 30% attack bonus. Walk O Flame. Flame pillars spawning chaotically around the character, but only during the walking animation. This was discontinued. Just kidding, this is actually in the game. Why the fuck is this a passive? This does nothing. If you're confused, or perhaps even mad about the new concepts and abilities, then just think of it this way. FromSoft could have brought back weapon durability just to get us to stop bitching, and the fact that they haven't dropped that fission bomb on us yet all but scientifically proves they know it'll work when they do it. Worse yet, they could have introduced a hunger mechanic where your character has to stuff their face full of raisins and potentially poisonous mushrooms every 5 minutes just to stay alive. Or a manipulative battle pass that only unlocks after you've lost 10 runs in a row, specifically to capitalize on the apex of your frustration. Or a plant-based character with a fertilizer support ability that gives players a nice, healthy, and non-toxic means of literally just shitting on your whole team. Maybe a hunger mechanic is something we actually need. This is why FromSoft is having to force-feed us a healthy diet in the first place, because none of us know how to take care of ourselves. And a small, yet frighteningly influential subset of people are out there begging for a report function because their moms didn't give them enough attention or something. You got what you got, and it's time to shut the fuck to your bitch and take it. I'm Rusty, dive under a falling vending machine, and that's all I'm giving you. Bye.